please stand? The overflow tent, can we all stand?
Count morning, ladies and gentlemen. By virtue of the powers vested in me as Vice Chancellor and Principal, I hereby declare that this congregation of the VUT University of Technology is duly constituted for diplomas and degrees to be conferred to those students whose names appear on the program. Whilst remaining standing, shall we request our choir to lead us in the singing of the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a congregation, you are invited to observe a moment as we observe a prayer before we commence with the official program. Let us pray. Dear Almighty, the Omniscient One, we come before you with all humility to serve you and your people. Please guide us in everything that we say and do. Bless each and every one of us and bless our institution. Inspire us to strive for that which is good, and not to be self-seeking and serve our own interest, but let everything be done to your glory. Use us as your vessels of honor, so that the fruit of our labor may endure, for peace and goodwill towards all mankind. We ask this in your name, Father. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you. Welcome to the graduation ceremony of the VUT University of Technology at the Vanderbilt campus. Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to welcome you as a congregation gathered here today to witness and celebrate the achievements of our students at VUT on this momentous occasion. A special word of welcome to our distinguished guests, members of staff, families and friends. To all diplomats and graduates, welcome to this long-awaited day. May it be everything you hoped for. Vice Chancellor, it is my honor indeed to present to you candidates of the Faculty of Human Sciences of the VUT University of Technology, whose names appear on the program for the receiving of diplomas and degrees. For the diploma, Ecotourism Management, Kanye TP. Matebula RP. Kamubundu U. For the diploma, labor law, Kosa TT. Lagaje JM. Leshomo KP. Machika DN. Matebula BV. Ngubeni VE. Rikhotso KK. For the diploma, legal assistance, Mabasa HS. Razilani RL. Seva MG. For the national diploma, fashion, Letwaba R. For the national diploma, fine art, Ndlovu MA. Ndlovu TC. Ngake MS. Thank you. Shwambea M. For the national diploma, hospitality management, Botsane MH. Dlamini NS. Kome TT. Maduna NC. Mbanjwa K. Mukokama I. Molefe KP. Muyanga CSK. Ramaro R. Tabete NG. For the National Diploma, Graphic Design, Ndlozi NN. For the National Diploma, Policing, Kolepi VJ. Kosa MT. Mabelani KF. Mabote LN. Madi Khache T. Mahume DE. Muhajani IG. Mtsadi TS. Mushapi V. Ngwenya N. Mkapane M.E. Thank you. Ratombo A.M. Simango W.J. Simbini M. For the National Diploma, Public Relations, Chokwe M.M. Fodo B. Hlalele L. Hlomuka B. Jeremane M.R. Kumalo N.B. Kubai S. Masuku T.A. Mtinga O. Muamuhe M.L. Thank you. Thank you. Mudimu M.R. Mofokeng M.R. Muji L. Mokwena R.L. Motei M.W. Ngunyula SN. Ngwama G. Ramohama GG. Rasebota KL. Sambo KP. Sambo SP. Sibia N. Zangezito N. For the National Diploma, Safety Management, Bono HTN. Jele AP. Kosa S. Kujana VV. Matebele NA. Masidi ME. Monare IN. Mosopa TT. Motau DM. Mphahlele BM. Mputi LL. Mtsweni GV. Munyai N. Thank you. Mushawasha FF. Tambeleni ME. Reset PV. Pule SJ. Radebe ET. Rampopo HT. Rapolai BJ. Ratweni S. Sebuhudi AJ. Sejake MJG. Selepe PP. Chihibane J. Sibanyoni N. Sibia NI. Teledi ME. Tseke ML. Vilagati SC. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Silence, please. For the National Diploma, Tourism Management, Ledoba Arts J. Cum Laude. Thank you. Chauke D. Saba SN. Thank you. Khatali T. Malebo KKG. Mbele S. Mbele SB. Muitwe R. Kotwe BO. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Silence, please. Oliphant KS. Ramerechi K. Thank you. Thank you. For the Advanced Diploma, Policing, Hlongwane S. Lepoko SA. For the Advanced Diploma, Safety Management, Simelane WT. For the Advanced Diploma, Safety Management, Baloi R. For the Baccalaureate Technologiae, Public Relations, Tapedi NT. For the Baccalaureate Technologiae, Tourism Management, Kumalo AB. Msibi SM. For the postgraduate diploma in higher education, Biela LN. Chauke LP. Duda SB. Zanibe MS. Kano NT. Mabaso MA. Magagula NN. Masoko KE. Mahale ME. Masemola J. Mkize T.I. Mkwanazi S.T. Mkwanazi T.H. Mofoke, thank you. Silence, please. Mofoke MP. Mojela E.M. Motola L.S. Mtembu N.T. Mutuli P.P. Ntlabati T.M. Nkosi S.I. Nkosi S. Nkosi SZV. Nyawo E.K. Rama P.K. D.D. Thank you. Thank you. Tobejani L.S. Twala J.Z. For the Magister Technologiae Fashion, with the dissertation entitled Fashion Drawing Skills Training for Unqualified Fashion Entrepreneurs in the Mfuleni Local Municipality, a need assessment. Supervisor, Dr. J. Van Staden, Co-Supervisor, Dr. N. Cotier, Stradom, LN. For the Magister Technologiae Fashion, with the dissertation entitled Selected Factors Influencing Satisfaction and Purchase Intentions Among Plus-Size Female University Students. Supervisor, Professor M. Jurap, Co-Supervisor, Dr. N. Cotier. Zwani CP. For the Magister Technologiae Fine Arts, with the dissertation entitled Power Discourses, Social Development and Editorial Cartoons, a Botswana case study. Supervisor, Professor N. Monroe. Co-supervisor, Mr. V. Mazige. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sihuhula K. Cum Laude. Thank you. For the Magister Technologiae Fine Art, with the dissertation entitled Practice-Led Research, Research-Led Practice and the Dilemmas of Ideation and Artistic Inquiry. Supervisor, Prof. A. Monroe. Co-supervisor, Mrs. L. Jupris. Cote J.N. For the Magister Technologiae Fine Art, with the dissertation entitled Exploring Black Women's Diverse Hairstyles Through Art, a case study. Supervisor, Professor Casey Moloi. Co-supervisor, Ms. M. Tipudi. Radebe ZL. For the Magister Technologiae Photography, with the dissertation entitled The Wedding Ritual, a photographer's journey to capturing practice. Supervisor, Professor A. Munru. Co-supervisor, Ms. A. D. Clerk. Bogle S.L., also staff member in the faculty. For the Magister Technologiae Public Relations, with the dissertation entitled Determining the Effectiveness of Health Communications in the Gauteng Province, a case study of child immunization in the Vaal region. Supervisor, Prof. C. O. Miruka. Co-supervisor, Dr. L. M. Maleho. Matsuso MLL. For the Magister Technologiae, Tourism and Hospitality Management, with the dissertation entitled Local Communities' Perceptions on the Role and Benefits of Tourism in Protected Areas, a case of the Kruger National Park. Supervisor, Dr. L. Lekauta, Co-Supervisor, Professor Islabet, Kasane R.S. For the Magister Technologiae, Tourism and Hospitality Management, with the dissertation entitled Determining the Environmentally Responsible Behavior of Tourists Visiting Selected Resorts in Limpopo. Supervisor, Dr. L. Menzi, Co-Supervisor, Professor Islabet, Maboya M.K. Thank you. For the Doctorate Technologia, Fine Art, with the thesis entitled Culture as a Weapon of the Struggle, Black Women Artistic Contributions to South African Art History through Conferences and Festivals between 1982 and 1990. With the promoter, Dr. Gillian Carman, and co-promoter, Professor Raimi Badamusi. The abstract reads as follows. This study makes two assertions: that culture was used as a weapon during apartheid in the 1980s, and that Black women as artists contributed to South African art history through conferences and exhibitions. The process adopted in securing these two positions was to use the frameworks of critical race theory and grounded theory as methods to elicit personal experiences through interviews with women involved in the arts. Culture as a weapon of the struggle constructed a substantial part of this research. Important to the role of Black women as cultural activists was the inclusion of the oppressive nature of class, gender, and race as experienced by Black women during apartheid, to expose the complexities that impacted Black women's role as activists. The study asserts that Black artists, specifically Black women artists, were prejudiced during the 1980s. This did not, however, serve as a deterrent to their contribution to a South African art history. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one and the only Suful A, also staff member in the Faculty of Human Sciences. Suful A. Thank you. Vice Chancellor, I hereby request that you confer the diplomas and degrees in absentia on those students whose name appear on the program but could not be present today.
I hereby do confer the diplomas and the degrees in absentia on those students whose names appear on the program but could not be here today.
I thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who probably might not be aware, this choir has won almost every competition that it has participated in. If you were to give yourselves an opportunity to go to the Vice Chancellor's office, there is no corner that does not have a number of trophies by this choir. And the most important thing is that the management had a vision of the choir recording a CD, and that dream was indeed fulfilled towards the end of last year. And the VUT choir is probably one of a few of the 26 public institutions which has recorded a CD with 16 songs. And so we really want to thank the choir for that initiative. The CD will be launched sometime. We will hear from the choir master as to when that is going to take place. And when it does, we would like to request all of you here in present and those that are not here to support this choir. because this choir is a community-based choir. Not only members of the choir, university students, but we also have members of civil society on the choir. And the proceeds will evidently go towards helping this choir in many ways, whether it is through entrepreneurship or it is through the academic programs. But we really would plead that you colleagues do support the choir, and thank you very much. Today, I think the choir has done exceptionally well. For the first time in 12 years that I've come to know the registrar, he was not satisfied only with 2 songs. He said the third one. And they went, when they went for the third one, he said the 4th one. So, yes, choir, you have outdone yourselves. And not only that, Professor van der Bank is the kind of a person who does not quite often get shaken, a typical lawyer. But today, I could see her moving as the choir was singing. I could see her moving. And to support her, right behind her is Professor Koni Muloi. And she also shook her head. And I said, oh my goodness me, yes, the choir has done exceptionally well. And thank you very much, choir. And then again, those who might not be aware, the choir was bidding me farewell. This is my last graduation ceremony as the Vice Chancellor of the VUT University of Technology. And, but there is just one song which they have not sung as yet. I hope they will. So, choir, thank you very much. It is really a wonderful send-off. I will always look back and say, if there is one thing that we have achieved, is indeed to record the CD. And so, thank you very much. Colleagues, before I convey a message to the graduates, we had an agreement with the Senior Deputy Registrar. He always looks at his clock and time as to whether I've exceeded the 10 minutes allocated time. But today, where's Puga? George? Where are you? He said to me, given the fact that this is my last graduation, I can exceed the time limit even by 5 minutes. And I'm not going to disappoint you. I will do exactly that. Colleagues, we are living in times between times. Today, 42 years ago, we woke up to a country that was mourning the passing on of Steve Bantu Biko, who was driven from PE to Pretoria at the back of a Land Rover, naked, shackled, and the police, as they beat him up in PE Warmer police station, they thought that he was faking illness and faking the blows that they heaped on him. And they did not know what to do with him, and so they decided to drive from PE to Pretoria with Steve at the back of the Land Rover. It was a sad day for South Africa, a sad day. So today, as we celebrate our successes and our achievements, I am reminded that we should also remember Steve Biko where he is and ask ourselves, if he was still alive, would he be happy with what is happening in our country, where black people continue to murder one another, where Africans in particular continue to kill mercilessly, brutally, grotesquely one another, I don't think he would be happy. Where African values seem to have escaped through windows, I don't think that he would be happy. Where morals and values seem to be paralyzed, I don't think that he would be happy. Nor do I think that the stalwarts of our freedom and liberation would be happy with what is going on in our country, where women and children are raped by psychopaths who claim to be men. Real men do not do rape. Real men do not kill women. Real men do not do drugs. Only last week, the country was burying Uyinene Mkhwejana, a UCT student who was led into death by this psychopath working in a post office in Claremont, Cape Town. Say, come back after hours, because he was just thirsty for the blood of that 19-year-old and many others in the country. As South Africans, as Africans, we should really be ashamed of what is happening in our country. Women, whether old or young, are not symbols of sex. They are not. In fact, women are flowers of our country. We should really be ashamed as men of what is happening in our country. And so I would like you to rise. Rise, please, and say these words after me. We, the VUT University of Technology, today on the 42nd anniversary of the death of Steve Biko, here we stand in the face of the African continent, that we denounce and we deplore rape of women by psychopaths who call themselves men. We denounce xenophobic attacks. We denounce Afrophobic attacks. And we denounce femicide. And we say enough is enough. Never again shall our country be the skunk of the world. It starts with me. I thank you. As I was saying, let me observe protocol in case the registrar will say to me, there is one thing that you missed before I get to business. I want to convey my greetings in absentia to the administrator, Professor Rensbeck, who is in Cape Town. I recognize the members of Senate and the members of the academic staff, members of the administrative staff, as well as members of the organized labor, Nteu and Nehau. I recognize the Student Representative Council, Mr. President. I recognize members of the University Choir. I recognize the work behind doors performed and executed by the members of the Corporate Affairs Department under Mr. Michael Kuboni, the Executive Director, and Ms. Mukotsi, the Director of Marketing and Public Relations, as well as members of the Registrar's portfolio under the Registrar himself, Dr. Mkwena, who equally worked hard behind doors to make all the graduation ceremonies a success they have turned out to be. Thank you very much, colleagues. I recognize members of the media, and I appealed to members of the media yesterday, and I want to do that even today, that as they report on what is happening to VUT, they must report objectively. There have been instances where they have totally misconstrued what is happening at our university. And I want to plead with members of the media here in present. If they want to challenge me on that, my office is open. I want to recognize and thank the sponsors and the parents who have sacrificed not only their time, but their hard-earned salaries to see you, my children, walking across the stage. I also want to pay tribute to the captains of industry who have supported this institution in many ways. Last but by no means least, our celebrants, the graduates, for having studied hard to walk across the stage. And even though there were moments and times when you had to negotiate just that percentage, 1%, but nonetheless, today, it is not about negotiating a percent because you've got it. As I was saying, Mr. Registrar, all what I said about xenophobic attacks, etc., and I said, I thank you, and the congregation responded and said, I thank you. It reminds me of just two jokes before I get to business. I was invited. I'm a Methodist preacher, by the way, those who don't know. I was invited in PE by the Anglican Church, and so I was told that in the Anglican tradition, before you say anything, you start off by saying, may the grace of the Lord be with you, and the congregation will respond, and with you too. I practiced and I had it right. And I got this, and somehow I thought that the microphone was not working properly. After, the traditional cultural thing, may the Lord be with you, and they all responded, and be with you too. I said, okay, fine. So I tapped on the microphone, and I soliloquized and said, it would appear that there's something wrong with the microphone. And the congregation responded, and with you too. and so it's very important. And the last joke, which goes to the registrar, colleagues, we are privileged that we are still alive. Because there is this story of this man. This is the importance of a strategy. This man dies, and when he gets to the next world, I did not know that, in fact, even in the next world, you are given choices. So when he got there, there was St. Peter's. St. Peter's was giving directions at the intersection. On the right-hand side, it's written road to hell. And on the left-hand side, it's written road to heaven. So St. Peter's is standing there, and this guy comes. And St. Peter says to him, look, you have a choice. You can first go to heaven and have a taste just for a day, whether you'll be comfortable there. And then if not, you come back, you go to hell. And when you are in hell, you have a choice of staying there and not coming back, or whatever your choice is. But you cannot choose twice. So this gentleman said, I would prefer to start in hell. Let me go to hell first. And if things don't work out, at least I will go to heaven. So indeed, he goes to hell, and he was received very warmly with beautiful music playing, dancing, and there were black bottles, all black bottles full of, I did not say it. And the music that was being played It was lapho uzongithola khona kusebumnandini, something like that. So he enjoyed, and also, what do you call this latest dance of going down? Vosho, that's right. And they were doing the Vosho, you know, and he said, wow, this is great. And so after a day, he said, just for the fun of it, let me go to heaven. So he meets St. Peter's at the junction, said, no, it's actually very nice in hell, but I would also like to go and taste how it is in heaven. So he said, okay, no, you go. But remember, you've got one choice now. If you find things fine there, it's fine. You can come back and go to hell. Okay, no, that's fine. So he went to cut a long story short, get to heaven. Music was very somber, beautiful green flowers, and people were praising and worshiping. And he said, no, it's fine, but it does not have that vibe. It doesn't have that vibe. And so after a day, he says, no, I'm going back. And so St. Peter says to him, are you sure you want to go? He said, I'm definitely sure. I want to go to hell. The vibe in heaven it's not my type, you know. So he said, okay, goodbye. Now you're not going to come back. He said, no. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to enjoy myself there. When he gets to hell, they used another entrance, not that first entrance. And when they opened, here was that big guy, you know, with horns and a tail and a fork. And he says, no, but you see, this is not... They said, no, but remember, when you came in, that was our recruitment strategy. Colleagues, enough now about jokes. I have titled my message to you this morning, Remembering Your Roots in the Midst of Achievements and Successes. Remembering your roots, even as you dance and ululate in the glory of your achievements and successes. Graduation Day is a very special day to all of us, as it brings about joy, delight, and happiness. However, as we celebrate our achievements and successes, let us also remember those who have not been fortunate like us, walking across the stage on such a very special occasion. The spirit of Africa is in our midst. We are Africans, made of the African soil and of the African soul, born in Africa and birthed by Africa, and therefore are all Africans. Not many of your ilk have had this opportunity to enroll at a university and to succeed, but you are the chosen ones. And so, as you celebrate your achievements, remember your roots in the midst of your celebrations and jubilations. Your qualifications should not make you proud and arrogant, because pride and arrogance are the antithesis of Africanism. Yes, as an African compatriot myself, endowed with the spirit of Africanism and humanism, I urge you not to forget your roots, as the journey of your careers and successes is starting now. The jingling coins of materialism and richness will soon make your pockets heavy and heavier, and the temptation of turning your backs away from your African background and traditions, as well as forgetting the perennial land question, will be playing heavily on your consciences. Whatever the circumstances are, please forget not your roots. Remembering your roots and your backgrounds will make you a better person, but not only a better person, but a proud citizen of our country, but also not just a citizen of our country, but equally so, an excellent denizen of our continent, Africa, and the world over. I repeat, remember not to forget your African spirit, and the beating drums of Africa, the blowing winds of our mother continent, and the pattering waters of our crisscrossing rivers of Africa, and the undulating plains and valleys of our natural architecture and beautified by our natural mountains and hillocks, which give an awesome beauty of our land, which the colonizers and the imperialists saw fit to plunder and balkanize. And so remember, this is your proud, heartfelt African moment, and therefore never lose your African identity because of materialism and capitalism. You are graduating at a time when our country is fraught with a myriad and a tapestry of challenges, conundrums, and complexities, informed and driven by perplexities, paradigms, and ineluctable imponderables. And this is the moment for which you have been waiting for, and the moment which the country has equally been waiting for, producing a new breed of men and women who can stand up straight in an upside-down environment and stand for truth and justice in the midst of prosecution and persecution. This is a true spirit of Africanism and humanism. Embrace it as the true compatriot of our African continent. Yes, the winds of change are blowing all over South Africa as things fall apart, and as South Africa has become a restless nation. And in the midst of all these challenges, there is you, the newly African-baked intelligentsia. Take up the challenge and make South Africa a true democratic country. Otherwise, Khubusana's words, as captured in his book titled Zemkinko Moma Kwalandini, your treasure, your heritage, and your wealth are being snatched under your watch, you cowards. You are graduating at a time when the country is embroiled in xenophobic attacks, Afrophobic attacks, and femicide. You are graduating at a time when the country is mourning the death of Uinene Mkhwejana, the UCT student, brutally raped and murdered by a psychopath who is a post office employee in Claremont, Cape Town. We are equally mourning the death of many women and children throughout the country who have been victims of these barbaric attacks. This cannot be, and this is not right. And all peace-loving citizens of our land should say, enough is enough. Rather than fighting against the social and political inequities which have come to be synonymous with our country, South Africa, or shall I say, our true country, Azania, we continue butchering one another over meatless bones and scrambling for resources. By the way, South Africa is the only country in Africa which does not have a proper name other than it being referred to by its geographical location, South Africa, a piece of land which is at the southern tip of Africa, hence South Africa. When we were students at VUT some years ago, we belonged to the Student South African Organization as well as the Black Consciousness Movement. We used to call South Africa Azania. We used to shout hard and high, one Azania, one nation. And I don't think that we were wrong. If we were, I challenge the researchers in our midst to prove us wrong and come up with the real name of South Africa rather than southern tip of Africa. Remember your African felt background and do not forget your roots. Charles Dickens, in his masterpiece book, A Tale of Two Cities, said, and I quote him, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was an epoch of belief, it was an epoch of incredulity," close quote. Yes, in years gone by, it was the best of times to be an African and being a denizen of our continent. But with the advent of missionaries and colonialists, it became the worst of times. It is now your responsibility to take South Africa out of the morass of what William Gumede calls a restless nation, and turn it into a restful nation and driven by the best of times. Quite often we hear of the following challenges facing our country: poverty, unemployment, and inequality. These are the challenges which are drummed into our heads over and over and over again, but there seems to be no immediate solution to the said challenges because we seem to have lost our African felt background, and our ancestors have probably turned their backs away from us. May I also be bold and say our African ancestors are perhaps beginning to turn their backs away from this institution, not unless we can come up with a super and a supra-inordinate power of intervention. Graduates, if you fail to listen to the drums of the African beat, Hobusana's words will come to haunt you. Zemkinkomo Makwalandini. Your wealth and your heritage are being snatched, and I watch you cowards. I wonder, as I ponder, as to what the permanent cure is going to be to the following cancerous and cantankerous challenges which are not spoken about quite frequently: corruption, Guptarization, tenderpreneurship, money laundering, fraud and bribery, infrastructural decay, state capture, and the rampant institutional capture, brutal murder of women and children by psychopaths roaming our streets, xenophobic and Afrophobic attacks. These and many more challenges have led Mahmoud Mamdani to decry these senseless killings in his book, When Victims Become Killers. These are the people who only yesteryear were victims of apartheid, and in fact, some were not even born during the time of apartheid, but today they consider themselves as the stalwarts of freedom, yet they don't know what it was to be behind bars. But now, with the advent of democracy, they have become killers of the very democracy. Are there such people in this hall? Your guess is as good as mine. As you have walked across the stage today, and this being one of the days you will never forget in your lives, are you then going to fall victims of Mahmoud Mamdani's prophetic words, when victims become killers? Make sure that in your endeavors, you are counted amongst those who have injected a sense of morality in our bloodstream. The above are the elements of a sick society which has become cantankerous, contumacious, and intractable, and therefore require you and I, the present generation, not that I'm the present generation, I'm a generation, to fight for a special kind of freedom, not political freedom or radical economic transformation, but freedom which is going to be based on the African values, driven by morality, respect, and taking good care of one another, and thus becoming your brother's or your sister's keeper. This you will do only when you remember not to forget your African roots. The city of gold is full of glittering lights and shining skies and twinkling stars, and if you are not careful, you may be attracted to these more sheepishly and not look at what is going on down there as you transverse the road full of prizes and surprises. My advice is, walk carefully and beware of quicksands which may swallow and devour you if you forget your African background. And as I say so, I also want you to remember the prophetic words of the late King of the Kingdom of Swaziland, King Sobhuza II. His words and philosophy are interpreted by the prophet Landandwe in her book, Akusiko Kwami Kwebantu. It is not about me, it's about the people. And quite often, you have people in the leadership positions leading themselves. Meanwhile, they've been put into office by people. It is all about themselves and not about the people. You are graduating at a time at which William Gumede is addressing the question of a restless nation, making sense of troubled times. And these are indeed troubled times for our country. And you shall have to navigate your way through to save our country from a disastrous tsunami of economic destruction and paralysis. Our country is fraught with a high level of moral deficit. And again, Gumede is correct when he says, and I quote him, elected leaders are living the high life on taxpayers' money, and in their bubble of luxury, they are forgetting about the poor. The scenario describes a nation which has forgotten its roots. Forgetting the poor is basically turning away from one's own background and one's own self. That is why Gumede further says, our rainbow nation has become a restless nation. Citizens are faced with poor service delivery and corruption, while a new bullying culture has infected both politics and business. Robert Sobukwe, in 1949, had this to say when he was addressing a graduation ceremony of this nature, when he was president of the SRC at my alma mater, Fort Hare University. And he said, let me plead with you, lovers of my Africa, to carry with you into the world the vision of a new Africa, an Africa reborn, an Africa recrafted. Young Africa, we are the first glimmers of a new dawn. And I close quote. As if to agree with the above quotation, Martin Luther King Jr., equally expressing the same sentiments in the United States of America, said, and I quote him, my country, it is of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of my pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring, and I quote, and I close. As I close, please allow me to quote Robert Mangaliso again, as quoted by Elias Mkwidibi, who advises that when Robert Sobukwe launched the PAC in 1959, he said, and this now refers to you, my dear graduates, here is a tree rooted in African soil, nourished with waters from the rivers of Africa. Come and sit under its shade and become with us the leaves of the same branch and branches of the same tree, I close quote. Indeed, here is a tree of success, and so come and sit under it and enjoy its fruits of liberty and freedom and education as you embark on your journey, which will take you to places you've never been before in your lives. Embrace this tree of liberty, freedom, and education, as it is the product of the land question, the expropriation of land without compensation, which we cannot avoid. You know, yesterday, colleagues, I said I become concerned as you crisscross the country. You find patches of land, unoccupied land. Meanwhile, you go to every city, you find mushrooming of shacks. And then you begin to ask yourself, but who is owning these huge tracts of land which are unoccupied when there are people who are staying in shacks? It cannot be right. Our government consistently talks about land issue, but there is no action. And I liked it when the administrator said, I have observed that even at VUT, we talk and talk and talk and talk, but there is no action. And that needs to come to an end. As you will be joining the open labor market, stop talking, but be driven by action. Before I conclude, as this is the last graduation ceremony I'm presiding over as Vice Chancellor and Principal, I want to echo the sentiments once expressed by the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as he had a premonition of his death when he got to Memphis on the eve of his untimely death, when he said, and I hope this is not a premonition of my own death. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man, for mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, and I close quote. These are the sentiments I'm echoing as I will be leaving VUT, not in a coffin, but hopefully in full peace, as longevity has its place. Leo Buscaglia, that Italian-American motivational speaker, puts it succinctly when he says, only you can make the difference. And that is why today, with all the qualifications that you have acquired, I'm challenging you, make the difference. As Leo Buscaglia says, let me quote him. You alone can bring magic and humor and joy to the people you encounter. Anything you dream, by the very nature that you can dream it, makes it possible. The purpose of life is to help others, and if you can't help them, would you at least not hurt them? You can make things happen that you never thought you could. The greatest risk in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, and is nothing. To be is to do, and to do is to do now, because tomorrow might not be there. You have everything you need to be so much. Don't settle for less. There is no end to human potential, and there's so much more to learn. The time for action is now, and only you can make the difference. I thank you. Before I dissolve the congregation, there is a ritual which I nearly forgot, and I think it is important that we perform that ritual. We have parents and friends and relatives in our midst, so I will request all graduates to rise, no longer graduates, but graduates now to rise. You are a graduate before being kept. After you have been kept, you are now a graduate. And by the way, remember, if your surname is Mukwena full stop, today you are not only Mukwena full stop, but you are Mukwena BTech VUT. You are Mukwena National Diploma VUT. So your surname has been extended, and take pride in that. That's why I'm requesting you to rise and take your mortarboards on your left-hand side and your certificates on your right-hand side, and you look at the side of your families and your friends and your relatives. You wave your mortarboard and your certificate, and when you're done, you do the same with the academics on stage, because without them, you would not be where you are. Okay, before you sit down, before you take your seats, I have not seen you waving to your academics. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. By virtue of the powers vested in me as Vice Chancellor and Principal, I now dissolve this congregation of the VUT University of Technology.
Tsinga.